Evolution of ruling systems. Imagine traveling back in the time to when humans first lived in the small groups. This journey will show you how governments and power changed from ancient tribal groups to today's states. We will meet kings, councils, and even people voting. We will tell little stories along the way. Don't worry, everything will be easy to understand and friendly voice. Tribal societies before 3000 BCE. Imagine two families in a forest, hunted together and shared food. They sit in a circle every evening. Grandma tells a story or suggests where to find the berries. Meanwhile, grandpa remembers a lesson from hunting. If there's a problem or like a sick person, the whole group listens. They decide together. They might say we will share our fish or tonight we stay near the fire. Decisions come from the group of elders or everyone talking, not from a single boss. Long ago, people lived in tiny tribes. Think of family camping by fire under the stars. There were no kings or presidents. The group were often most made of relatives, parents, cousins, and grandparents. An elder or brave hunter would speak for the group. In these tribes, in Africa, Asia, Europe, or America, life was simple. People cared about survival, finding food, staying safe. There was no formal government building or written law. Instead, everyone knew the rules by tradition. This is communal living. Early monarchy and kingdoms from 3000 BCE. Picture ancient Egypt around 3100 BCE. The land along Nile River had many villages. The leader named Narmer, also called Menes, united Upper and Lower Egypt. He wears a special crown and has many helpers. Everyone believes Narmer talks to gods. People think a pharaoh is like living god on the earth. He orders people to build the first pyramids and temples. He became the pharaoh, controls the rivers flooding. People listen. As people began farming and building cities, new system arose. In places like Mesopotamia and Egypt, one person started to rule as a king or pharaoh. In these kingdoms, power was centralized. This means one rule, often from a royal family, made the decision for the whole region. Monarchy usually passed power to their children. This is hereditary rule. The crown stays in the family. Kings and pharaohs had grand titles like King of Kings or Lord of Two Lands. In many cultures, religion gave the kings their power. They said the gods choose me, so opposing the king would almost like opposing the god. This system happened in many places, like Sumerians had kings by around 2700 BCE. In India, various kings and emperors appear later. In China, the legendary Shi and Shang dynasties started around 2000 BCE with emperors. Even after 3000 BCE, monarchy continued. Some got absolute power like medieval Europe kings or today's Saudi king, where the ruler makes almost all the decisions. Others became constitutional like today's UK or Japan, where parliament or assembly limits the king power. Oligarchy from 750 BCE. Meet Leonidas, a proud Spartan soldier. Spartan has two kings, but the real power often lies with a group of old soldiers called Grocia, Council of Elders. Leonid's father is one of those elders. He says, "We have lived many years in wars. We decide the laws." Few noble families control Spartan life. Ordinary Spartan men and women, useless warriors, can't vote on laws. Around 750 BCE, in many places like ancient Greece, think of Sparta and some city-states in Italy, power was held by few. This is called oligarchy. Rome started with powerful politician families, nobles, making decisions too. The Venetian Republic, later in the Middle Ages, also had a few rich merchants' families ruling the city. In an oligarchy, people in power are usually wealthy landowners or military leaders. They often shared ideas among themselves at a council table. The regular citizens or peasants have little to say. The good side, the decision can be fast if everyone at the table agrees, and the bad side, most people are left out and life can be unfair for them. Theocracy from 2000 BCE and still today. In ancient Egypt, the pharaoh was worshipped as a god. He didn't just rule the land, he was a part of religion itself. When pharaoh went to war, people said the gods sent him. If pharaoh made a law, people followed it like a holy rule. Imagine a world where religion and government are one. Theocracy is when priests or religious leaders rule, or when a ruler is also head of a religion. Or think of a different scene, medieval Europe, around year 800 CE. The Pope, leader of the Catholic Church, owns a land and armies, forming the Papal State of Italy. People pay taxes to the church and follow its judges. Or even 600 CE, the Islamic Caliph, the Caliph Umar, was both spiritual leader and a ruler of a big empire. The law comes from the religion, like Sharia law in Islamic states or canon law in medieval Europe. Even today, in countries like Iran, have a powerful religious leaders. They called it Ayatollah above other officials. Theocracy means laws are based on holy books or priests. It can give a clear moral guide to the nation, but if religious rulers are strict, people may lose some freedom. Democracy and republics. Around 500 BCE. Around 500 BCE, the idea of rule by people started. Two famous early examples are Athens and Rome. Athens. In Greek city, Athens, free male citizens walk to the agora marketplace. In the sunny morning, they meet under the olive tree. One by one, they vote with the stones or by shouting. This is direct democracy. Every citizen can speak and vote on the laws. This happened around 500 BCE. The atheists believed all male citizens should have a say. Women and slaves were sadly not allowed it. Rome became republic in 509 BCE. This means instead of kings, Rome had elected leaders. Two consuls acted like presidents, and the Senate, made of nobles, debated laws. Ordinary citizens voted for tribunes to protect their interests. These were the early seeds of democracy. The term democracy even means people power in Greek. After centuries, democracy had spread slowly. For example, American Revolution in 1776, colonies declared independence, created democracy and republic. USA Constitution in 1787, French Revolution in 1789 overthrew French monarchy, inspired ideas like liberty, equality, and democracy. In 1800s, about only 1% of people lived under anything like democracy. It was rare, but in 20th century, more and more countries embraced democracy. Now we have different types of democracy. In some small spaces, try pure and direct democracy where everyone votes on every issue. But most large nations use representative democracy. People vote for elected officials like members of parliament or Congress, and these officials make laws or policies for them. Empires and feudal system. 2000 BCE to 1800 CE. Sometimes rulers got ambitious. They built empires, huge lands, conquered one under one ruler or the family. Picture a Roman Empire at its height, around 100 CE. The emperor lives in a marble palace. In a faraway provinces, legions of soldiers enforce Roman law. Local kings or governors answer to the emperor in the Rome. People speak many languages from Britain to Egyptian, but all pay taxes to it. Meanwhile, in China, various dynasties unite millions of people under the emperor, like uh, Queen Xing Huang around 200 BCE, who built the first Great Wall. In empire, often still had kings or governors, nobles, ruling parts of it. It it's like a huge nation made by smaller kingdoms that owe loyalty to an emperor. It's a monarchy, but at a large scale. Later in medieval Europe, roughly around 500 to 1500 CE, a feudal system developed. Imagine Europe around 1200s. A king owns all the land by tradition. He gives big chunks of land to nobles or lords. These lords become vassals. They swear loyalty to the king and promise to raise armies for them. These lords in turn have knights under them, and at the bottom, peasants work in the fields. Peasants pay crops or rent to the knight or lords who owe service to the king. So the power flows like from king to nobles to knights and to peasants. The king had to rely on nobles to manage lands. This system was decentralized. The advantages were the king could rule large lands by trusting local lords. The disadvantage, Kings sometimes had weak power if nobles acted too independently, leading to conflicts, wars, and divided states. Empires and feudal systems lasted a long time. Example empires like Mughal Empire 1200s, Ottoman Empire like 1300s to 1920s, Mughal Empire in India like 1526 to 1857. They all had powerful rulers, emperors, sultans, and hierarchy of nobles below. Dictatorship and authoritarian rule. Antiquity to today. A dictator is when one person seizes or holds all the power without effective legal limits. The ruler often uses fear, force, or propaganda. In Rome, in 44 BCE, Julius Caesar crowns himself as dictator for life. He holds all the power, the republic's end. The people feared his army, but note, Caesar was murdered soon after. Another problem of dictators. Centuries later, one of the worst examples was Adolf Hitler. He rose to power in 1933 Germany. Hitler made himself the ruler and the ruler of the controlling army and secret police. He used propaganda to control the republic. Ordinary Germans had no real voice. In modern times, some states remain dictatorship. For example, North Korea's Kim dynasty. A general or a party can also be a dictator, like Saddam Hussein in Iraq. Military juntas in some countries. Common theme is that one person or a small group controls everything, often brutally. Advantages from the dictator's view, decisions can be made very fast. No need to debate or vote. But the disadvantages are huge. No freedom, human right abuses, risk of bad leadership with no checks, and often a terrified population. Even in ancient times, temporary dictatorship existed. Roman Republic had a practice. In emergencies, one man could become a dictator for 6 months, like Cincinnatus in 450 BCE, but he had to step down later. Modern dictatorships ignore such limits. Parliamentary and republic systems, 17th century to today. Starting around 1600s, many countries moved power away from the kings and give it to the parliament or elected assemblies. In 1688, the Glorious Revolution in England puts the King William and Queen Mary on the throne, but only after they accept some limits. Soon, Parliament, the group of nobles and later commoners, gets the real powers. The Bill of Rights, 1689, means the king cannot raise taxes or armies without Parliament's permission. Over 1700s and 1800s, the UK becomes a true constitutional monarchy. King's rule is mostly ceremonial, while elected MPs, members of Parliament, run the country. In 1911, British Parliament Acts even reduces the power of the House of Lords, making the commoners of the boss of lawmaking. In 1776, the American colonies declare Independence Day. In 1787, they write a constitution. The USA becomes republic with no king at all. People elect president, head of state, and Congress, legislature. The checks and balance system splits power. Congress makes laws, the president enforces them, and courts interpret them. In India, 1947 become independent from Britain. In 1950, India's new constitution sets up parliamentary republic. They have president, head of state, mostly ceremonial, and a prime minister, real head of government. The prime minister and the cabinet come from parliament, just like UK system. Today, parliamentary system like UK, Canada, and India usually have a prime minister chosen by majority in the parliament. Presidential systems like USA, Brazil have presidential elected separately from the legislature. Both are types of democracy, but they share power differently. Historical journey from tribes to states. We have seen our quick time journey. Tribes made decisions together for survival. Kings and pharaohs later took the charge of the bigger groups. Oligarchy, with a few rich folks in power. Priests and religious leaders sometimes ruled all too. Then citizens in ancient cities tried ruling themselves through democracy or republic. Empires spread large governments, feudal systems had lords and knights. In some eras, one strong leader, dictator, took full control. Finally, many places today use parliamentary or presidential republics where people vote. Many famous figures fit into the history, like Louis XIV in France, I am the state, was the mighty absolute king. Peter of Great Russia built a modern army and the government. Stalin and Hitler were dictators of 20th century. The Pope in medieval times combined religion with rule. Today's ayatollahs in Iran do too. Throughout history, shift often come when people demanded change. For example, peasants in Europe revolted against feudal lords, and citizens demanded rights from the kings. These were steps toward democracy. Now let's talk about advantages and disadvantages of systems. Every system has its own ups and downs. Let's compare them in simple terms. Monarchy. Advantages can bring stability. Strong king can unite the country. But the disadvantages? If the king is bad or cruel, the people suffer. Not easy to remove him. Oligarchy. Advantages. Decisions by small group of people can be quick if they agree. Disadvantages, most people have nothing to say and often ignores the common person. Theocracy. Advantages, shared moral religious values might unite people. Leader can appeal to the faith. Disadvantages, can limit freedom. Example, no choice in religion, strict laws. If one church or religion rules, others suffer. Democracy or republic. Advantages, fair representation, people have rights and a voice. Government can change by voting. Disadvantages, decision making can be really slow. Debates, elections. Not everyone trusts democracy either. Some fear mob rule. Dictatorship. Advantages, decisions are fast. The ruler can act without approval. But the disadvantages, huge risk of abuse. People have few rights, often ends badly, like war, rebellion, when people revolt or when the ruler dies without heir. Parliamentary systems. Advantages usually combines local representatives like MPs with state leadership, prime ministers. Power can be changed by election or votes of no confidence. Disadvantages can lead to political gridlock if parties fight. Small parties may hold big power in coalitions. Empires or feudals. Advantages, empires gather resources and knowledge from many lords, many lands. Feudal ties could protect people, knights protect peasants from invaders. Disadvantages, empires can become too large to manage, in leading to collapse. Feudal lords often compete for power, causing wars. No system is perfect. History often shows people making mixed ideas to fix the problem. How ruling systems differ in real life. Even with one system, countries can run them differently. For example, monarchy. Absolute monarchy like Saudi Arabia today or old France. The king or queen makes nearly all the rules. Citizens can't vote. Constitutional monarchy. UK, Japan. The king or queen is mostly symbol or ceremonial. Parliament or the public actually governs. People vote for their representatives. Dictatorships. Some dictators are military leaders. Think of generals who seize power like some Latin American countries in 20th century. Others are civilian leaders or parties like fascist government or one-party states. The method of control varies. Strict laws, propaganda, secret, police, or control of media. Democracies. Direct democracy is rare but practiced in small places or towns. Like Switzerland's referendums or ancient Athenian assemblies. Representative democracy is really common. Citizens vote for leaders. This includes parliamentary democracies, UK, Australia, Canada, India, and presidential republics, USA, Brazil, Nigeria. Some countries are mixed, like France has a president and a prime minister. Parliamentary systems. The role of the top leader varies. For instance, in the UK, the prime minister leads the government and the monarch is just a ceremonial head of the state. In India, president is a figurehead and the prime minister runs the country. In presidential systems like USA, the president is both head of state and the government. Power structure and checks. How is power shared or checked in this system? In monarchy, power flows from the king or the queen down. Early on, kings appointed ministers or advisors. In constitutional monarchies, those advisors became the part of the parliament. Power is checked by the council or courts, sometimes by tradition. In oligarchy, power flows from the group of elites outwards. There might be rules among them, but they keep the public out. Sometimes a few families or military leaders make the deals to limit each other, but regular people have little redress. In democracy, power starts with people, the voters. People elect representatives who make laws, and those laws are checked by the courts, making sure that the laws follows the constitution and by the order and by other branches of government. For example, in the US, the Supreme Court can say a law from the Congress is illegal if it breaks the Constitution. This is called checks and balances. In dictatorship, power goes all to the one person in or a party. Often, this person controls the courts and family military too. So there are few real checks. Only a strong revolution or a coup can stop a dictator, which is risky. In many systems, people set up checks to avoid one person getting too powerful. Ideas like constitutionalism, having written set of rules, grew out of revolutions. For example, the US Constitution splits power to avoid tyranny. In monarchies turned constitutional, a parliament often limits the king actions, like passing a budget or declaring war. Modern examples and comparisons. Let's compare the few countries today. Democracy, USA versus India. Both have large population and hold regular elections. The USA has a president and a two-party system. India has a parliamentary system with many parties. Americans vote directly to the president. India's vote parties in parliament. Both have courts freedoms like speech and assembly, but that look and sound different. Trump versus Modi. Monarchy. Thailand versus United Kingdom. Thailand has a king who is respected and has some political influence until recently. But Thailand also has had military coup, so the king role has varied. The USA has a queen, now king, who is basically a tourist attraction. Real decisions are made by the parliament. Brits vote for MPs. Thai people have had less stable political path, sometimes military rule. Dictatorship. North Korea versus hypothetical friction. North Korea's Kim's dynasty is an extreme one-man word law. Outside it reports the very strict control, no free press. We avoid naming others, but history had many such regimes. These places often show high military power and low personal freedom. Theocracy. Iran versus historical Vatican. Iran's supreme leader is religious cleric. Law must fit Islamic techniques. The Vatican 1700s had a pope ruling Rome as a king. People followed church law. Both show religion in change. Through Iran now also has elected officials under the religion leaders watch. News stories often measure governance effectiveness or personal freedom. Generally, democracy scores higher on the freedom and the quality of life. Through there are exceptions. For example, democracy often rank higher on Human Development Index or press freedom. But some argue that strong rulers like some in some Asian monarchies or one-party states can push for fast economic growth. The debate continues. People want security, rights, and good leaders. Big ideas and philosophy. Let's think about why we obey rulers at all. Philosophers in history tried to answer this. Social contract, Hobbes, Locke. Imagine we all lived in a state of nature, very rough. Philosopher Thomas Hobbes, 17th century, said life would be nasty, brutalish, and short without governance. So people agree, contract to give up some freedom in return for protection by the ruler or state. In return, the ruler must keep people safe. If he fails or is cruel, people might have the reason to change the government. John Locke had a more optimistic view. People have natural rights: life, liberty, property. Government are formed to protect these rights. And if government breaks that trust, people have a right to replace it. Inspired by the American revolution idea. Legitimacy of power. Why do you accept rulers? It could be rough through tradition, like our kings had ruled since forever. Force, like my army will kill you if you rebel. Or consent, we voted, we support this leader. For example, many monarchies said God chose me, divine right. That's tradition and religion. Democracy says people agree by voting, that's consent. Plato's idea of state. The philosopher Plato in ancient Greece wrote about ideal government. He imagined a society ruled by philosopher kings, wise people who know what's the best. There would be guardian classes for defense and working classes for produce food. There would be no real practice, but it's an interesting idea. A perfect wise ruler. Machiavelli. In 1500s, Niccolo Machiavelli wrote up The Prince, advising how rulers keep power. He said it's better to be feared than loved if you can't be both. He explained real politics, often harsh, like use of force, lying, cruelty if needed. His work shows one side of the dictatorship, power above all. Fun analogies and stories. Let's make this relatable with some analogies. Schoolyard. Imagine your school. If the principal, king, made all the decisions alone, school rules, punishments, without student input, that's like monarchy or dictatorship, depending on how the principal acts. If a group of teachers or maybe students, student council or a few classmates made rules, that's oligarchy. If all the students vote on every day, every rule, everyone raises their hands for the rule change, for the change of the rule, that's direct democracy. If we elect class leaders to make decisions, that's representative democracy. Cartoons, let's imagine. Picture cartoon showing power. One cartoon might show a king on a throne with big crown and a scepter, absolute monarchy. Another shows two or three rich men whispering over papers, oligarchy. A third shows a priest on the mountain passing down tablets, theocracy. The fourth shows people with ballot or raise hands, democracy. The fifth one soldier stamping his foot, dictatorship. Hybrid systems. Some countries have mixed systems. For example, Japan has an emperor, monarch, but he's mostly ceremonial. The real decisions are made by the elected prime minister and the diet parliament. So Japan blends monarchy and democracy. Revolution. How do systems change? Sometimes with the bang. People might overthrow the kings when they starve or are injustice. Think of French Revolution, angry citizens storming into prison, the Bastille, and the beheading of the king. Or the American Revolution, colonists fighting for independence to step up the republic. These stories show how ruling systems aren't forever. People rise up if the rulers fail them. Soft versus hard power. A king or a country can influence others in two ways. Soft power through culture, ideas, money. For example, in ancient Rome spread its language, rules and laws peacefully in many places. Hard power is through force, armies, weapons. Hitler used the power to invade countries. Today, a strong economy or a popular movie can be a soft power. The United States had both soft power, Hollywood music, and hard power, which is military. Let's go to the conclusion. The world today. In 2025, the world's government are mixed. Some are democracies, like 65% of the countries call themselves democratic, though quality varies. Some monarchies still exist, though mostly constitutional, like Spain, Norway. Few absolute monarchies remain, like Saudi Arabia. There are hybrid systems, like China is officially a communist one-party rule, but with some elements like local election. Venezuela calls itself participatory democracy, but has authoritarian traits. Understand this ruling system help explain news. When a country elects a new leaders, people celebrate democracy. When a king abdicates or a revolution occurs, history shifts. These concepts might sound old, but they shape daily life. Do we vote to make laws or do we follow them because that's how it's always been? So as we end off our journey, first the fires of the ancient tribes to modern parliaments. Remember, ruling systems have evolved. Just like people did, they affect the needs and ideas of their time. Such systems mix together, some fade away. The story continues. Maybe the next chapter is already been written. by people like you and me who care about how the world is run.